All right, so now let's talk about dorsal and ventral body cavities. All right, so we talked about dorsal. Again, dorsal just means along the back, right here, right? So along the back part. And ventral just means along the front part right here. So this is ventral and this is dorsal. And then the body cavities are again, they're just these fluid-filled spaces in the body, and they protect our organs, right? They hold them, and then they have that fluid inside of them that protects our organs from damage. Of course, if anything hits us too hard, some car accidents. I know some people have dislocated their spines falling off of high places. The guy who used to play Superman back in the 80s, Christopher Reeve, he fell off his horse and he actually severed his spinal cord from his brain. Right. So if it's too much of a force from some kind of a hit or something, a fall, then yeah, it won't protect the organs and parts of the body that way. But if it's not something drastic, then our body is protected. And so you have the cranial cavity up here, again, the cranium up in the head, the dorsal body cavities right here. Vertebral cavity. So again, the vertebral cavity and the cranial cavity, you can consider them dorsal, right? Because they're back here. So here, we talked about the thoracic cavity. So you have the thoracic cavity here in purple. And again, you see it right here. The abdominal, you see it here in this kind of reddish color. And then the pelvic cavity, you see it here in this in the pelvis area, right in the hip region, in this green color. And so yeah, just looking at this, there's so many different vocabulary words and things to learn, right? Just remember the main takeaway from this slide: ventral body cavities, both the thoracic and abdominal pelvic, which is just the abdominal cavity with the pelvic cavity, are considered ventral, right? And then the dorsal body cavities here, you have the cranial and the vertebral, right? Containing our brain and our spine, or our vertebral column right here. So these are the dorsal and ventral body cavities. Dorsal on the back, ventral in the front. So again, just the dorsal, the ventral cavities, cranial cavity up here, vertebral cavity here, the ventral, the thoracic cavity, which is again in this purple color right there, pleural cavity. And so, not going to get into too much detail on this. Again, the main takeaway from these here are to remember which are the dorsal along the back and which are the ventral cavities along the front. And here you see the dorsal are the cranial and vertebral, and then the ventral are the thoracic and the abdominal pelvic. And just something here to point out: lateral, the side view; anterior is the front view, right? If we were getting the back side view, we would call that posterior. So here you have regions and quadrants. Something to point out: just the word quadrant means four, right? So whenever you see that word quad, it means four, right? So here you right away you see one, two, three, four. It's broken up into quadrants. It's broken up into four pieces, right? The right upper quadrant, the left upper quadrant, the right lower quadrant, and then the left lower quadrant. And I start with this one just because it's easier to break this one down because of the quadrants, right? And that's why we do this, is to make sure that it's easy, or as easy as possible. I know once you get into all the names of the muscles and the tissues and all that, it gets a little bit more complicated. But for now, again, quadrant is it's a lot smaller than you see here in this area, and so that's why I start here. But let's go ahead and move over to the region that of the peritoneal cavity that is not broken up into quadrants, right? So here you have this broken up into six different little pieces on this grid right here. And so it's not important to know all of these right now. What is important to know is just that we break the body up into pieces so that we can be able to name it and identify it and study it easier. Right, so regions, it's broken up into regions. You see here in into more regions. But when you see the word quadrant, it's broken up into four pieces. And here again, you see the word abdominal pelvic regions. Again, abdomen is just like your stomach area, and the pelvic area is like the hips, right? The hip bone area. So again, not too important knowing all the different parts of these right now. We will get into more detail when it comes to naming, but right now, just remember it's broken up into pieces to make it easier to understand. All right, so here we have the serous membrane. So the visceral membrane you see right here, visceral, whenever you're talking about visceral, it's usually the inside of something, right? So if you eviscerate someone, it basically means to remove their insides, right? And so the visceral part of this is the inside part of this membrane. And the parietal, sorry, of this, what you can see right here is just a cavity that holds, in this case, the heart, right? But what you're going to see right here is the visceral, again, is the inside right here of the cavity, and where the heart is. And then the parietal, again, I mentioned that peri kind of means on the outside or to the side. And so here the parietal is on the outside of that. Here you have the pleural serous membranes, the pericardial serous membrane. And actually, let's go to the next slide to kind of look at some of these things. Right? So the serous membrane, when you think of a membrane, just think of kind of like a thin skin, right? And so the serous membrane or serosa is a smooth tissue membrane. And so again, smooth tissue skin basically of the mesothelial lining, contents, and inner walls of body cavities. Right. So in your cavities, you will have your body cavities, you will have this a membrane. And it secretes a serous fluid to allow lubricated sliding movements between opposing surfaces. So basically, it's like it can be almost like the way oil kind of oils the parts of your car. This serous membrane kind of oils, I guess if you want to think about it like that. It's like a fluid with proteins in it, but it allows for your parts to get lubricated, right? And to allow for the sliding of your organs, right? So they don't just kind of get stuck in one position, and they kind of move with your body and the way you are positioning your body, right? So the visceral membrane says a serous membrane that covers internal organs. So again, the visceral part is here on the inner lining. And then the parietal membrane, the serous membrane, covers a cavity wall. So it's out here. And this illustration, is kind of to show you how this cavity is kind of structured. It's almost like you have a balloon and you blow it, not completely inflated, but enough so that you can kind of put your hand in there and it's protected by the balloon, right? So if you kind of have that balloon on your hand and you hit a wall accidentally, it's not going to hurt your hand, right? Your hand's going to be protected in that cavity right there. And so that is how our heart is protected, right? If something hits your heart at a very high rate of speed with a lot of force, that can definitely cause you to go into cardiac arrest, have some kind of issues with your heart that could lead to death, right? So even though it is protected, it's only protected for a certain amount of force to your body, right? After that, it's not going to lead to positive results, right, for your health if you hit your chest that hard. But for now, it is kind of protected by this serous membrane.